I'm Brenda Miller, and I am here today at the historic Marsh Store in Coldstream, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes west of London, Ontario, with the owner-operator of the Marsh Store, which is a quilting shop, Shirley Parkin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Shirley, tell me a little bit about your background and what you did prior to being here at the Marsh Store.
I was an elementary teacher, and I decided I need something to do outside of teaching. So about 1978, I took a quilting class. I wasn't from a family of quilters, and I did learn to quilt and did quilting with children until I took an early retirement. And after that, I needed something to do, and we saw the store and it was for sale, so decided to venture into the world of retail.
Okay, so you retired from your job and were looking to, have some fun with your hobby while having a business at the same time. So what year did you actually buy the building?
We bought the store in 2004, and it had been a restaurant and antique shop. So we bought, renovated, and moved in close to December of that year, and I bought my first 40 bolts of fabric in March of 2005.
Yeah, and I remember I bought some of that fabric and made some quilts out of it, and when I look at those quilts, I still think, that's from the original 40 bolts. But I know that the store didn't start off as a quilt shop. Tell me about that.
Well, Jacob Marsh married Louisa Wood, and they lived in the Wood family home up the road and ran a general store out of their front parlor.
And when was that?
1850s.
Okay.
So when Louisa's parents passed away, they moved the Wood family home down to the Marsh family property and built the store side on in around 1869, and it ran as a general store until 1955 with the passing of Roy Marsh. After that, it fell into disuse for many years, and it sold to the local conservation authority in the late 1970s, and they raised the funds and rebuilt the store so that it survives today.
Wow, that's exciting. Now, it's obviously had a long history, so the building didn't actually start here. It started somewhere off property and got moved here, but that's just
the family
one
home,
side of the building.
Through the doorway on the other side.
Okay.
The family lived there.
So what direction is that?
North.
Okay, so the north side of the building. So the part of the building that we're in now, which is like the main showroom of the general store, was built 20 years later, approximately. Is that right? Then correct me.
No, it was the Wood family home, so it was built a lot earlier, and they moved the whole house down here.
This portion was
built in 1869.
Okay.
And people often say it looks like an old riverboat with a balcony around the outside.
Yeah, it does. And I can't think of any other properties in the area that even look similar to it.
No, and people say, oh, it's your house. And no, it's been commercial property since 1869.
Right, cool. Now, I know when you first came to the building, the idea was that more antiques would be sold, right?
Well, we started out with antiques, but that's a difficult business. But we renovated upstairs and actually sold our house and moved in and lived upstairs.
But you started with your 40 bolts of fabric and just expanded from there.
Yes, it took quite a while. I figured it would take about 5 years to become firmly established, and as we grew into other rooms and added more inventory and built classes and whatever. So in the beginning, I visited all the local suppliers that were within a couple of hours drive and picked up some sale bolts, and so I had something to sell that was a reasonable price that would draw people in.
Right. And of course, it's hard to build up stock right away, so that's just a really smart thing to do.
It took a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, and you must have felt like this is a fairly large layout, so to start with 40 bolts is not a big draw, right? So you must
well, they fit on the shelves at that end.
It's hard to fill a store with 40 bolts and bring.
It's hard to make a quilt with 40 bolts.
Well, I made one.
Well, yes, but certain tastes.
That's right. You can't cover every taste with 40 bolts, so that's
No.
really cute. Now I know that is the building's designated historical, is it? What is it designated?
The outside and this room have to remain looking the same.
What's the designation here? Is it
Historical.
Historical? Okay.
In the late 70s, they were designating quite a few historical properties in Ontario, and so this was one, and it was, the outside had been rebuilt from what it was in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s to rebuild the balcony onto it. And then this room has the original counters, it has the original cash register. Unfortunately, it only is useful for storing change, but there are some artifacts that stay with the building. Well, this was a display case that was here in the store when we arrived, and upstairs they had a bit of a museum, and in one of the showcases upstairs was a hat box, and in it was a beaver hat.
Oh, how wonderful is that? And just behind you there.
Behind me is the old cash register.
Mm-hmm.
I use it for storing change. I call it my flea market register. It doesn't do tax and it doesn't give receipts.
Oh, isn't that clever? And what are all those A, B, C's, and D's for, do you think?
Departments.
Okay. And this that you're...
This is the account register. So it has some names of the original community members.
Okay.
And when you came in and said, put it on my account,
Yes.
it went back here.
Ah.
There's one still here from Mr. Nagel from 1916.
Mr. Nagel, if you're out there, it's
You
time
owe
to...
for your oil.
It's time to pay up.
So when people came in and said, I want to pay off my account, they take all your sales slips out. You'd have a number, they take them out, and then you would
Yeah.
settle up. The McCaskey account register.
Okay. Oh, I see Jake over here. I'm just going to pan over to Jake.
Okay.
Jake, you found my coat. Well done there. Hey, buddy. The counters are original.
We've got some spice bins that are original to the store, a display case, some historical calendars.
Some memorabilia.
Yes.
I know there's a whole little area here in the store where you got the pictures of the marshes and some historical pictures of the outside of the building, and there's a lovely old image on your business card. Oh, that's
Jake the store cat.
Jake the store cat. Call him over here. Maybe he'll come and see us.
So those are some calendars from the Marsh Store, the granddaughters Letty and Lottie Marsh.
Okay.
A picture, they had a sawmill, a wool mill, and a grist mill on the property, and the story was Louisa Marsh would make midnight dinner for the staff at the woolen mill, but it burned down at one point. There's a postcard of the Marsh Store as it looked through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Okay, so a little bit more dilapidated.
Yeah, well, it didn't have the balcony on it.
Ah.
But these calendars are from 1921 and 1925.
Oh, wow.
And then someone brought in Jacob Marsh's diaries from 1917 and 1918.
So are these just like business diaries?
Yes, put out by Canada Trust.
And it says something like it snowed today or that kind of stuff as well? What do we got?
A dull day, cleaning in the evening. Nothing of importance happened today.
All right, a good day.
A good day. But in here, they built a house for Roy and Hope Marsh just up the road. And this records all the bricklayers' hours, and one day it said went into London for door handles with Roy. But here's a cure for rheumatism.
Oh, excellent. What is it?
Pure alcohol, turpentine, acetic acid in equal quantities, shake while using, bathe the bottoms of feet.
Oh, good. Don't take internally.
No. And cures for bunions and corns.
Oh.
Glycerin, add a fifth worth of carbolic acid, apply night and morning.
Well, isn't that too cool?
So, those were lots of fun.
Now, I've heard a few ghost stories told about this building. What can you tell us about?
Well, one day we were having a class in a room through the doorway in the classroom, and one of the quilters looked up and she said, do you have ghosts? And I said, why? Did you see something? And she said, yes, a man in a long coat and a tall hat. And so I went and got the picture of Jacob Marsh, and she said, yes, that's him. But I tell people we don't have ghosts, we have angels. Because the first day we came here, we just looked around and then went home and came back the next morning. And I looked down and saw the welcome mat by the door, and I said, was this here yesterday? And we didn't think it had been, so. Oh, yes, sir.
Maybe.
You've seen them, haven't you?
Have you seen ghosts? Okay.
Yeah.
Affirmation.
So some people feel the sense that there's a certain feeling about the building, but they love having quilters here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a warm, welcoming feeling here in the store. So what's it like to live and work in an old building like this, in this community?
Well, it has some challenges, but out behind us, we own exactly 1 meter or 3 feet behind the building, and behind that is a conservation area where people come and walk and enjoy the scenery all year round. So there's a lot of people that just stop in to see what the store is and to talk about how maybe they grew up in the community and they remember helping out in the store, and someone came in and said, yes, Roy Marsh sat over there and he had the first TV in the community, and it sat on the counter, and we'd help him pump gas, and he'd give us half a brick of ice cream after school. But over the course of the years, it's been the community library and council meetings, so it has a real sense of community. People that grew up in Coldstream always come back. We've had people from the community who've gotten married that pose on the balcony because it's so much part of their family.
Yeah. Now, you said there were gas pumps here. Were they in the front yard at one time?
Well, someone brought in a copy of a picture of an ink blotter that showed them just to the front, outside the front steps of the store.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of front yard here, but of course not much backyard. And I know that the back room was used as a butcher shop or something.
No, the library.
The library. But why are the floorboards so chopped up? What happened?
It was the chopping room. There was an outside door, and they'd bring the wood in and chopped it up for the wood burning stoves.
And there was a wood burning stove here when you first came, as I recall.
It was in the other room, but for insurance purposes these days, we had to disconnect it.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But that was quite an interesting piece as well.
Well, recently we had old buildings had streams running through the basement, and so there is one here, but they've built a cistern and put a sump pump in.
Yeah.
And while I was at Quilt Market in Houston recently, I got a call saying, don't worry, I heard a grinding sound from the furnaces and smelled smoke. So we've called the fire department, and there were 2 fire departments here within minutes because they know it's a historic wooden building. So they were here right off, and they found 1.5 feet of water in the basement, turned off the gas and the hydro, and actually had a neighbor come over and had the basement pumped out within a couple of hours.
So your neighbors here in the community are really supportive of you.
It's a wonderful community.
Right, yeah.
Always something interesting going on.
So I know you started the business very small and grew it into probably the largest quilt shop in the area. And actually there are very few quilt shops. Except we have a new one in London now too, which is great. So you basically did most of the work yourself when the business first started, and got employees along the way. I know I worked here for a little while.
You were my first.
That's right. I can remember some days when you'd be out and nobody would come. And I made a lot of samples, and then just things kind of ballooned from there as people realized that you were here, and word of mouth spread, and you're really well known now. You just built a terrific business. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's all your work.
Well, my philosophy has always been you should be able to come in and make the quilt you want, not the ones I've chosen. And it's hard not to fall into that. But I was a teacher librarian in elementary schools for many, many years, so I got used to buying a wide variety of books and reading materials for all the grades and all the reading tastes and levels. So it gave me an appreciation for how to order fabric that people could put together in a way that they wanted to meet their vision. I always remember people saying, oh, I don't know how to pick color. And so I would pick out something and I thought it was beautiful and they're going, no, I'm not sure. So I'd take out my favorite and they would put in another bolt that I really did not like. And they thought, that's it, it's beautiful. So I learned that everybody sees color differently, everybody sees how it goes together differently, and it's not necessary, what's right for me is not necessarily right for somebody else. So you should be able to put together the quilts that you feel are right for you and your family, that represent you well.
Yeah, I think that's really wise.
So when I ordered fabrics, I always made sure I had a little bit of everything, and once in a while I splurged on my personal taste, but not often. I tried to make sure it was a collection that appealed to everyone.
Yeah, and you do see a lot of stores that specialize, but I could, shopping here myself, I could never say, oh, Shirley is a traditional store or Shirley is a modern store, because you have something for everyone.
And specialty stores are great too, because the owner has a focus and can promote and sell the focus and can help people learn and appreciate how to make quilts in their style too. But because there's a few little shops in the area, I wanted to build something that if you couldn't find the last one you needed, you had a place to go to find something that would make it work for you.
Right, and you always had lots of blenders, which I think was super wise. You had a big Kona collection, and you had lots of tone-on-tones.
Oh, you can't keep a white in the store.
It's funny. Okay, so how would you say things have changed since when you first began?
People now are making more scrappy quilts. Some days if you didn't have fat quarters, you didn't have a sale. So we always had a lot of fat quarters, and people are using, so I say if you're making a red, white, and blue quilt, people are more likely, rather than to have one red, one white, and one blue, they might want 10 reds, 10 whites, and 10 blues, and making them all blend together.
Yeah.
So that's been a big change, and I think the other big change has been from gray browns to white, blacks, grays.
Right, yeah, the neutrals have changed. And you have such a nice selection of things to go with your fabrics too. You have a vast selection of threads. You've got like 50 weight to what? 20 weight?
Well, we have a long arm quilting machine upstairs, so that was another part of the business.
Right.
That we had threads that supported the machine. We didn't sell threads that won't work on the machine, so that we always had something to use. But basic threads and a little better quality thread, so there's something for everybody.
Yeah, that's
every budget.
Every budget. Yeah.
Not everybody can afford the best of everything, but you provide them with the best that they can afford.
What advice would you give to beginner quilters?
Beginner quilters? Take classes and start off with some good tools.
Yeah. What tools would you suggest they buy?
A 45mm rotary cutter, as large a mat as they can afford, because you'll always want a bigger one, and a 6.5 by 24-inch ruler, because that extra ½ inch always makes a difference. And then your second ruler would be a 12.5-inch square, and your third ruler would be a 6.5-inch square.
Right.
And between the three of those, you can do just about anything.
Yeah, and with a big mat, that really helps with the big pieces too.
Yeah, and to take classes.
Yeah.
You pick up tips and tricks that make your quilting go much easier.
No, that's good advice. So I'm thinking about your store and you being the proprietor here and what you became known for, and what sort of lands in my mind is the fact that whenever you needed something that nobody else had, you could come to your store and talk to Shirley, and Shirley would find it. So you were a fabulous procurer of stuff.
I always said it's my role in life to match people and resources, not to finish anything. So when I retire, I have 14 years worth of projects to finish.
Wow.
Like block of the month, I was always a month ahead, so when they got to borders, I never had to finish. So I've got quite a few of those.
Yeah.
But I found an iPad invaluable in the store, because someone would say, oh, well, I saw this on TV, I saw this in a magazine, can you get it for me? And I could look up on the iPad and say yes, and my supplier has it in stock, and I would always order a roll of batting or something else that they could tuck that extra tool or pattern in, and I wouldn't have to worry about the shipping.
Oh, clever. Yeah, so that's good advice for stores. Yeah, you were always just great at getting whatever and coming up with great ideas too. So
Well, but being Canadian,
yeah,
getting things across the border has not always been easy, and to order from a vast variety of cross-border suppliers has been difficult. So there are some things I had to say, you'd be better off ordering it yourself online.
yeah, understandable.
But I think a local quilt shop that will go the extra step and say, well, let me see if I can get it for you, and then offer you some advice on how to use it when you do get it, is why they come back.
Yeah, I agree. And you've always been very big on self-education for yourself and your staff, going to quilt market quite frequently, like at least once a year, and then sharing those ideas with the staff and with the customers when you got back. So what would you say the biggest benefit of going to those events was for you?
To see the state of the industry. When you're in your store, you have a limited perspective, but when you go to quilt market, you get the idea of what options are available and what's coming out. You can always say, well, I don't have a nice blue line now, but I know this company is bringing out a blue line that I've ordered these bolts of. So you can come back when I'm looking for those. You can say, yes, I was talking to this big name designer, and this is what they're going to be focusing on. So you're always up at the front of trends, so that when people bring in the magazines and say, oh, I want to do this, you say, yes, I saw that quilt, yep, you can do it, or no, I don't have it, let me call the quilt shop down the road because I know she sometimes carries that, and then I would call. And it's being willing to make connections with other shop owners and work with them that gives people a sense of community. It's not adversarial, it's everybody working together to help the customer succeed.
Yeah, well, that's a great philosophy. And I know that you participated in all kinds of shop hops and the row by row events and all those kinds of things.
And there's another quilt shop within about 20 minutes of us, and we've tried to have fun kinds of events for people, road rallies, like find how many stop signs there are between here and there, or one time we had some of the sales reps left some of their samples, so we put them in a garbage pail, and you had to stop along the way and pick up a piece out of that and bring it to the store, and then to prove that you actually stopped. And then we took all those and donated them to local groups doing quilting with disadvantaged women.
Yeah, well, that's a super idea. And with the new owner, can you tell us a little bit about the new owner that's going to be?
Yes, Tracy has been a quilter for 20 years. I've known her from quilting retreats that I've worked with the other store that we've had, and she's been there, and she has a strong retail background.
Okay.
So she's been in quite a few times, and she's saying, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. So she's really excited. And now that I've had it my time, and I'm ready to move on to my 14 years worth of unfinished projects.
Yeah.
So she's ready, she's got the enthusiasm to come in and continue it on as a quilt shop.
Yeah, with a little bit of twist in her vision, which is excellent too, because the thing about quilting and anything in life is to just keep it fresh.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you come to the decision to sell?
I came to the realization that I'd been here long enough and I didn't have the enthusiasm, and it wasn't exciting me as much anymore. Buying fabric and choosing it is always exciting, but I had enough of all the other organizational business aspects, and I thought it was time to retire. And the government calls me old and sends me checks every month.
Oh, how wonderful is that? Well, I know there must be an awful lot of behind the scenes work to running this store, the bookwork, the paperwork, the ordering, and just the day-to-day things you have to keep up with, the emails and
the employees and the payroll
and living on premises, like you never really get away.
No, 6 days a week.
Yeah, that's hard. So I can see that, yeah, a change will be great for you, and I know that you'll be spending more time with your family.
Yep.
Which will be great, and moving into London, Ontario. Yeah, so big changes and lots of UFOs to finish.
I decided to retire about a year ago, and so I started working on thinking how it would be best accomplished, knowing that selling a quilt shop can be difficult. And I had a couple of people that were interested, so I thought there would be some chance that I could sell it. So starting rethinking ordering, inventory, and the day-to-day movement, but it was really, this is December, so it was really in September. I know quilt shops have closed and customers have said, well, I had a loyalty card that I couldn't use and I didn't know, so I gave people 6 weeks to come in and use their loyalty cards. And at the end of that, stop.
Our little friend, he's okay, carry on.
Okay. So at the end of that, I decided that I couldn't handle doing it all at once. And when you're selling off your inventory, you aren't generating the income to cover staff wages a lot. So I didn't want to have to, have more staff. So what I decided to do was just do it gradually, and I started on a Monday, one room, 1 week, 10% off on Monday, and increased it 10% every day up to the last day when it was 60%. And the first few weeks, people were buying everything thinking it's not going to be here, so that it really helped downsize the collection and generate income at the same time, so that we did it in 4 different rooms, so over 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So people kept coming back and
to shop the next room.
Yeah, and this last week it was 70% off the whole store, and we actually emptied over half of this room. Now, in September and October, before we started this process, I did find the new owner. Actually, she had her 50th birthday in July, and her husband was planning a road rally, and the friends had to stop in and buy her a fat quarter, and he came in one day to organize it, and I said, well, would you like to buy your wife a quilt shop? And it turns out that he did.
So not just a fat quarter you sold him your whole business.
The whole business. So we started the process.
What a salesperson.
So we started the process in September, and we're still working through getting it, all the T's crossed and I's dotted.
Yeah.
But it's coming along, and the deal will close. But she picked a selection of fabrics that she wanted. She was a week before that area went on sale. So she's chosen some to start out with. And we went to Quilt Market together, and she's chosen some new stock so that she'll have some new things coming in, and she will build gradually, starting in this room, and then she'll build her business gradually too.
So you kind of mentored her through this, taking her to Quilt Market and helping her decide what's saleable. And
yeah, and that's been exciting too.
Yeah.
I always said I wasn't in it for the profit, and so this way I can help her establish, and then the client base that I've developed will go to her, and she will have a good base to start out with. So it's all part of the negotiations of the sale, but by the end of next week there should be very little left, and what is left will be donated because I don't want to move it.
No, of course not. Yeah.
And I will have generated enough income to be satisfied with where I am. I didn't expect to make a big profit off the business, but I'll be comfortable.
Good. Well, I think it's really commendable that you sold the business, because I can't think of another quilt shop in the area where somebody left or retired where the business actually sold.
I think it's partly due to the location.
Yes.
And the general atmosphere, whether you want to call it angels or ghosts or whatever, that helped the process.
Yeah.
And just the way that you've treated your customers. People think it's a great place to come, and they want it to continue, so that they're willing to help that process.
Yeah, it would be a real shame to see a quilt store leave this premises. So what advice would you give to anyone who has a quilt business and is thinking they would like to retire and sell? Do you have anything to share?
I think the biggest hurdle to get over is you're not going to recover all your costs for your inventory.
Sure.
And once you can let that go, then it makes the whole process easier.
Yes.
Do you want to move it? Do you want to store it for the next 10 years? Or would you like to see it put to use in quilts? So I think that was the biggest hurdle.
And finding a buyer, I mean, must be pretty difficult too. You kind of beat the bushes a little bit, I think. Did you not?
Well, people knew I was thinking of retiring, and I did have somebody that said I'd be interested, and I waited several months for them to make up their mind, and they said, well, no, I really wasn't. And then I had somebody else come. But if you trust in and have faith and make it reasonable.
Yes.
As long as you don't think you can sell your inventory for
And make
whatever you
something.
invested into it, and then you should be able to find someone if you want to help them through it.
Yes, I think, yes, that's just it, because it's such a big step for somebody new to the business to take. And I think maybe also, like I saw the whole process, that you had to be prepared for a bit of a roller coaster ride.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
People say, what are you going to do when you retire? I say, sleep.
It's a great idea.
And sew. And read books. I've got 14 years worth of books to read.
Yeah, that would be great fun. So for someone starting a new business, what advice would you give them?
Social media. I have really found a big difference using Facebook. Quilters are of an age that Facebook works for them.
Yeah.
So that, and everybody that walks through the door is a customer, and they're here to make a quilt. So to help them find a way to make that happen.
And to be friendly and...
We all have bad days, but hide it as best you can.
Yeah, take that home with you at night and deal with it then. Yeah. Well, I think...
And connect with other shop owners in your area.
Yeah.
It doesn't help to be adversarial.
Oh, no.
Well, and I think being a teacher, there were rules about if you ever said anything bad about another teacher, what you had to do, or else you would lose your job. So I've learned that it doesn't help to say negative things. You should be positive and work together, and it makes it more fun. And then you have a buddy to
talk about things with. Yeah, you're not a little island onto yourself.
No, and you can be close and be entirely different.
Oh, yes. And, I've seen that, so. Yeah. Well, I just want to congratulate you on your decision and your success with bringing that to fruition. And you are all done this Saturday.
Yes.
How exciting is that?
Well, I have 3 weeks to pack upstairs and before it closes. They said I didn't have to leave, but I like to be out when it's finally done.
You want to get those UFOs out the door.
And into my new sewing room.
Yes, I hope it's big.
Well, most people may call it a master bedroom, but to me, it's the sewing room.
It's the sewing room. Good. Well, lots of good light in your sewing room, and great finishing success on your projects. And,
Thank you.
And keep stitching, Shirley.
I will.
Okay.
You too. Bye. So when we were in Ohio one time, we went to an Amish hardware store and got a reproduction shopkeeper's bell.
Well, sounds very authentic.
It's loud enough to let us know when someone comes in.
Terrific.